The unexpected war, they didn't expect Earth to fight back. The Ilyari Empire had conquered 12 planets without firing a shot. They arrived with shining ships, spoke with pride, and demanded obedience. But Earth? Earth said no. Lieutenant Cade. Mercer was a soldier, yes, but not a special one. He had no noble blood. No medals, no glory. He was just strong, fast, dangerous, and most importantly, still alive. The first time he saw the Ilyari was on a battlefield just outside a burned city in the Andes. They floated down from the clouds like gods, tall, golden-skinned, beings in glowing armor. Their leader stood at the front, Commander Virelia, high-born daughter of the Sun Caste. Her silver hair floated in the wind. Her gaze was cold, and when she saw Cade standing among the last human survivors, she laughed. "You?" she said. "You're beneath my caste." "Then you better not lose to me," Cade replied. The battle was quick but not one-sided. Cade wasn't like the others. He moved like no human she had fought. His instincts were brutal, smart, angry. Her blade met his rifle, sparks flew. His strength nearly matched hers, and for a moment, she hesitated. "Who trained you?" she demanded, breathing hard. "Earth did," he answered, in pain, in loss, in dirt. Eventually, her guards dragged her back. She was bleeding, humiliated. Cade just stood in the smoke, wiping blood from his mouth. That night, Virelia sat inside her crystalline war tent. Her generals bowed before her. "He is just a human," one growled. "But he made you bleed," another whispered. That silence said more than 1,000 speeches. Virelia stood. "Tomorrow is the binding ceremony," she said. "They will send their strongest against our champion for the right of survival." "Let him come," she added. "Let the mud-born human beg." What she didn't know was, Cade wasn't planning to beg. He was planning to win. And in Ilyari law, the one who wins the right of first night during binding is granted a demand. Any demand. Even one that would make a high-born alien girl stare in disbelief. The ceremony of fire. The arena was carved into red stone and surrounded by glowing banners of the Ilyari Empire. Fires burned in tall glass towers, casting golden light on thousands of alien nobles and warriors. It was called the Ceremony of Fire, a sacred tradition where enemies could fight for the right to claim a request, no matter their rank. It had never been won by a human. Until today. Cade Mercer stepped into the center. No helmet, no body armor, just simple black cloth around his arms and chest. He didn't want protection. He wanted to be fast, to be dangerous, to be free. Across from him stood General Tovan Zek, an Ilyari champion twice his size, glowing with layered gold and crimson armor. He raised a long glaive and pointed it at Cade's chest. "You are nothing," Tovan sneered. "That's what they always say before I win," Cade muttered. From the royal balcony above, Virelia watched in silence. Her silver hair was braided, her eyes glowing faintly. Her hand rested near the ceremonial flame switch. She would declare the winner when it ended. She didn't blink once. Not because she believed in Tovan, but because she wanted to know how the human would lose. The bell rang. The crowd roared, and Cade moved. Tovan struck first, wild, powerful, fast. But Cade rolled under the swing, came up close, and slammed his fist into Tovan's ribs. A loud crack. Tovan grunted. "You fight like a beast." "Better than dying like a coward," Cade snapped back. The fight went on for minutes that felt like hours. Cade bled. Tovan's armor cracked. Then finally, Cade found an opening. He leapt, twisted midair, and slammed Tovan's head into the ground with a double kick. Dust exploded across the arena. Silence. Then, Tovan didn't move. The arena gasped. The fire sensors blinked. And slowly, Virelia stood. Her voice was cold and sharp. "The human has won." But she didn't smile. She didn't clap. Instead, she stepped down from her throne and walked straight toward him. "You now hold the right of the first night," she said. "Name your demand." Cade didn't hesitate. He looked her in the eyes and said one word. You. The crowd went silent. Virelia's lips parted, but no sound came out. I don't want gold, Cade continued. I don't want your technology. I want you. One night. Face to face. No armor. No caste. No guards. Just truth. Gasps echoed. A noble fainted. Even the guards tightened their grips. But Virelia laughed. Just once. Then nodded. Very well, she said quietly. But remember this, human, when you challenge fire, you may get burned. The night without armor, the Ilyari don't allow outsiders into their sky temples. Not even their own lower castes could enter without invitation. But tonight, because of ancient law, a human, Cade Mercer, walked alone into the high flame chamber, and she was waiting. Virelia, no armor, no crown, no guards. She stood near the window, silver hair falling over one shoulder, her skin glowing faintly in the light of the burning moons. She didn't smile. She didn't move. But she watched. Cade stepped inside slowly. The doors closed behind him with a sound like thunder. This is your idea of a reward? She asked, voice cold. No, he replied. This is my idea of honesty. She raised an eyebrow. You could have asked for wealth, power, a ship, and you chose me. I chose a chance, Cade said simply. To ask the one who called me beneath her caste. Why? She turned her back to him. Because it's true, she whispered. You are from a dying planet. Your people claw through dirt and call it glory. And yet, he said softly, I made your best warrior bleed. She flinched, but didn't argue. He walked closer, not touching her, not challenging, just near. You said I was beneath your caste, that I wasn't worthy. Yes. Then why didn't you stop the fight? She turned sharply. Because I wanted to see if you would survive. And now that I have, she hesitated. Now I want to understand how. Silence hung between them, thick, heavy. Then Cade sat. Down, cross-legged, right on the polished temple floor. Ask, he said. I'll answer. She looked confused, suspicious. Why are you doing this? Because the first thing I was ever taught in war was to learn your enemy. She slowly sat across from him. So I'm your enemy? You were, he said. Now I'm not so sure. They talked. About Earth, about Ilyar, about fear, family, battle, honor. Hours passed, and slowly, the silence between them began to soften. When I was 7, Cade said, I watched my home burn. I ran barefoot through broken glass to save my sister. She lived? No. Virelia said nothing, but her eyes lowered. You're not what I expected, she finally said. Neither are you. She stood and walked toward the window again. The stars outside shimmered like fireflies. You won the right of first night, human. You asked for one thing. Yes, she turned back to him. Then take it. I already have, he said, softly. She blinked. What? You sat, you listened. You lowered the wall between us, that's all I wanted. Virelia stepped closer. For once, her voice was quiet. You surprised me. Good. She reached out, touched his cheek lightly. That doesn't happen often. He smiled. Get used to it. Outside the temple, the Empire waited to tear them apart. But for this one night, in this one room, highborn alien and a dirt-born soldier shared something rarer than bloodshed, understanding. The price of breaking caste. The next morning, the palace doors opened, and everything changed. Virelia walked beside Cade Mercer, not behind him, not ahead. Of him beside him in Ilyari culture, that meant only one thing, equality, and that was a crime. The nobles on the temple steps froze in shock. Eyes widened, mouths whispered. Caste officials raised their scan devices, confused and offended. He walked beside her. One hissed. Did she grant him honor? Impossible. Another growled. He's human, he's filth. She's the sun caste, she can't favor a lesser. Inside the war chambers, her father, the Grand Marshal of the Flame Caste, slammed his fist on the table. She broke caste law for a Terran mongrel? The room of generals stared in silence. Remove her title. Remove her command. She is compromised. Virelia was summoned by the High Council within the hour. She stood straight in her robes of command, head high, but her eyes betrayed no emotion. Caste wasn't allowed inside. He watched from the shadows. You let him speak to you as an equal, the head judicator said. He is not my equal, Virelia replied. The council began to relax. But neither is he beneath me. Gasps, a pause. He is something different, she continued. Something the caste system has no name for. Then you are unfit to lead. No, she said. I'm the only one ready to lead in a changing galaxy. The judicator turned red with fury. You dishonor your blood. I honor my instincts, she said. And what does your instinct say about this human? She looked up, unflinching. That if the Ilyari Empire continues to see humans as nothing, it will be crushed by the ones it ignored. Back, at the human camp, Caste sat alone, weapon in hand, watching the sky. He knew what would come. Either she would return stripped of title, or she wouldn't return at all. But the doors opened again, and she did return, without her armor, without her crest, just her. They took everything, she said. You okay? Caste asked. She gave a small nod, then looked down at her hand, still shaking slightly. I stood for something, and now I stand alone. No, he said. He reached forward, took her hand. Not alone. Suddenly alarms blared across the compound. Enemy signals detected, but not Ilyari. Unknown warships. Caste turned toward the sound. You think they're coming for me? No, Virelia whispered, eyes narrowing. They're coming for both of us. And this time, they wouldn't be able to hide behind Caste. They'd have to fight side by side, or die together. A human, and an outcast. The sky turned red. Alarms screamed and the stars burned with the light of unknown warships, black, silent and covered in alien glyphs no one could read. These weren't Ilyari ships. These were something else, something older. Caste stood at the edge of the ridge, binoculars in one hand, pulse rifle in the other. Virelia stood beside him, still, wearing her ceremonial robe, not battle armor. You know who they are, he asked. No, she replied, her eyes narrowing, but they're not here to talk. Back in the Ilyari war camp, chaos erupted. Generals barked orders. Nobles scrambled for escape pods. The caste system, once so strict, began to collapse under fear. Without Virelia, they had no real leader left. But Caste and Virelia, they had each other. And more than that, they had a plan. We go in from the West Ridge, Caste said. Sneak past their drop zones. Plant charges at the main supply crawler. You think like a raider, Virelia smirked. Earth taught me one thing, fight smarter, not harder. Good, she said, because we're about to fight both. As they sprinted toward the crash site, Caste noticed something. She wasn't giving him orders. She wasn't pulling rank. They moved together, like soldiers, like equals. They reached the edge of the battlefield. Strange shadows moved across the snow, tall, skeletal creatures with black eyes and armor made of bone. Caste raised his rifle. You ever see these things before? No, Virelia said quietly, but I've read about them. And they don't take prisoners. A massive creature appeared, twice Cade's height, its head crowned with thorns, eyes glowing a sickly green. It roared once, and the snow cracked beneath its feet. Run? Caste asked. Fight, she said. They moved like a storm. Virelia danced with twin plasma blades, carving through the enemy with precision. Caste followed with brutal speed, kicking, punching, shooting. The alien forces didn't expect resistance. They definitely didn't expect a human and an outcast working together like war was in their blood. Suddenly, a blast knocked them both down. Caste rolled and coughed. Virelia lay a few feet away, dazed. The thorn-crowned beast stood, over her, ready to strike. No! Caste leapt up, dived between them, and took the hit. Armor cracked. Blood hit the snow. He groaned but stayed on his feet. Virelia stared at him in disbelief. Why would you do that? Because caste doesn't matter, Caste grunted. People do. She screamed and rose, slicing the beast's head clean off. Its body collapsed with a sickening thud. After the battle, they sat near a burning crawler, breath visible in the cold. Wounded, exhausted, but alive. You saved me, she said. You would have done the same. I wasn't sure. Now you are. She looked at him, truly looked at him. Not as a human, not as a soldier, but as someone who had stood for her when her own people didn't. You're still beneath my caste, she teased. Maybe, he replied, but now you're fighting in the dirt with me. They both laughed, for the first time, but their laughter was short-lived, because above them, more ships appeared, and, this time, they were Ilyari. The return of the Empire. The sky shimmered. Dozens of Ilyari warships pierced the clouds, sleek, glowing with royal sigils and armed to the teeth. They circled like vultures above the battlefield. Virelia stood slowly, eyes narrowed. They're early. Caste looked up, wiping blood from his temple. Friends of yours? Not anymore, she said coldly. They came to clean up, not to help. The ground around them still burned with the wreckage of the unknown invaders. The creatures were defeated, but the war wasn't over. Now came the political war. A royal transport landed nearby with a sharp hiss. 10 armored guards stepped out, spears in hand, followed by a tall Ilyari woman with white robes and a cold, perfect face. High Chancellor Vorna. Virelia of Flame Caste, she said, voice flat. You broke law. You fought beside a human. You disgraced your name. Virelia didn't flinch. I fought beside someone who saved my life, and yours, indirectly. The Chancellor's eyes flicked to Caste with disgust. You brought shame upon our bloodline for this thing? Caste raised an eyebrow. Still talking down to humans even after we cleaned up your mess? The guards tensed. So did Virelia. If you harm him, she warned, stepping forward, you'll have to answer to me. Gasps spread among the guards. Not because of her threat, but because of what it meant. She had just claimed the human under ancient Ilyari protection law. You invoke blood right? The Chancellor asked. Yes, Virelia said clearly. He is my equal, my chosen. You will not touch him. The air went ice cold. The Chancellor's voice grew darker. Then you are no longer Ilyari nobility. You are casteless. So be it, Virelia whispered. She turned to Caste, face tight, voice trembling just a little. If you walk with me now, there's no going back. Caste looked at her, at the ships, at the guards who saw him as dirt, and then he smiled. I've never gone backward in my life. The two turned away from the council and walked back toward the burning crawler wreckage. The soldiers behind them muttered. Some looked confused. Some looked thoughtful. But one young guard removed her helmet and bowed her head slightly as they passed. Caste caught it. Did she just? Yes, Virelia whispered. Some are watching, some are changing. Far above, the Ilyari ships began to withdraw, not because of fear, but because for the first time in centuries, one noble had broken the system, and a human stood beside her. The choice of a new world a week had passed. The war-torn snowfields were silent now. The invaders had been buried, the Empire had returned to orbit, and Caste and Virelia, they stayed behind, alone, together. They built a shelter out of scavenged crawler parts and Ilyari tech. It wasn't much, but it was quiet, warm in theirs. Each night they sat near a fire under 2 moons, surrounded by ruins, stars, and the hum of a new future. "They'll come back," Cade said one night, voice low. "Your people or mine. Governments hate loose ends." "Let them," Virelia replied, sipping hot root brew. "I'm done kneeling to a system that fears change." Cade studied. Her carefully, no armor, no crown, just her, strong, stubborn, and more real than any soldier he had ever met. "You know," he said, "you never told me why you invoked blood right." She smiled faintly. "Because I wasn't just saving you from them. I was saving myself." They sat in silence for a while. Then a shadow passed overhead. A human dropship marked with Terran military codes. It landed near the edge of the field. A young officer stepped out. "Sergeant Mercer, command wants you back." Cade didn't answer. He looked at Virelia, then back at the officer. "I'm not going back," he said. The officer blinked. "Sir, you're a hero. You'll be awarded, promoted." "I've done the war thing," Cade said. "Now I'm doing the right thing." Virelia stood beside him. The officer looked confused. "She's an Ilyari. You can't just—" "I can," Cade interrupted, "and I will." He took one last look at the ship, then turned his back on it forever. Later that night, Virelia asked softly, "Are you sure about this?" "I've been sure since the first time you called me unworthy." She laughed. Then leaned her head against his shoulder. "You still are, but now I'm unworthy too." They both laughed. Together. Over time, other Ilyari outcasts joined them. So did some humans tired of orders and old flags. Together, they started something small, a village, not a colony, not a military base, just a home. No castes, no chains, no walls, only people. And on the first clear night of the new year, Cade carved something into a metal panel above their shelter. We were never beneath. We were just not seen. Somewhere in orbit, both empires still watched, still waited. But down here, on frozen soil and star-washed nights, a human and an ex-noble had done something no general, no council, no war could stop. They chose each other.